Okay, so we've got the Navflow that we built before, and now it's time to work out what attributes are going to make it onto the mini card, the list, the detail page, and how we're going to design each one of them so that they fit all the rules that we talked about before. So we want to make sure that all our objects look distinct, all of our objects within all representations of our object look consistently like the same thing, just like a bigger version of that thing. And we want to make sure that all of the calls to action are in the right place, that if you're going to sort and filter by a particular attribute, that attribute is visible on the card, which is where you're going to be sorting and filtering several of those things. And so I have this template here that I put together that goes through... We already went through prioritization a little bit when we did ranking and phasing, but actually this is a more obvious way of doing it that I thought I'd lay out visually. So we're going to move our object map over to here, and we are going to put, for example, our global CTAs are going to go at the top. There's one space for a CTA there because that space is going to be the only global CTA we tend to have in a list is a create, because you can't create. There's usually not a create button on an instance of an object because you haven't created it yet. That's the point. So we always put that one on the list. Sometimes adding something to a list that isn't there, that's going to go on a list as well. So we could have more than one potentially, but usually it's just one at a time. Got the name of the list up here and the object. And then here are essentially the rules for this follows all the trickle down rules that we need to follow. So anything that appears on the mini card is going to appear on the card. It's going to appear on the detail page. Anything that appears on the mini card, unless you're building quite complex software that requires someone to sit down and learn it, and usually it's software where someone is concentrating on using that software quite hard, which is not what we want for most things that we're building that are built for pleasure or convenience. Usually we want to stick to rules like this. So the mini card should only contain, where did that information go? It can contain up to 3 attributes, and those attributes can only be core content or metadata. And then when we get onto the card, it's more like 5 to 7 attributes. That's as many as you can get on there without it starting to feel like it's quite busy and there's a lot to concentrate on. And on the card, you can show nested objects because we have the mini card. And you can show calls to action. So it's anything goes in these blocks, and then all the rest are going to be on the detail page. We want to think of, when it comes to the list, we want to think about which attributes we might want to sort and filter by, which one of those sortable attributes we want to be the default sort, so as soon as they log in or something, that's how things are ordered. And we also want to highlight if a particular call to action that's on the card is also batchable, which means we call that being on the list. So if you want to be able to favorite a bunch of things at once, bookmark a bunch of things at once for later, maybe delete a bunch of things at once, we're going to highlight that as batchable. And then also something that is available once you get to the card is a CTA menu, because sometimes you have that little drop down that gives you a bunch of options that you can do to this object that doesn't require the card to be cluttered full of buttons. And if you want to have a CTA menu, then you just add that in, because it does take a piece of room on your card. And then you can fill in the CTA menu and just place it below here. So I'm going to show you how I did this for the objects, and you can see what kind of thing I mean. Okay, here we are, magic. So here's person. Oh, that's still called product. I renamed that as item, didn't I? Item. You'll have to forgive me. It's probably throughout. Item. So we've got the create call to action as the global thingamajiggy, global CTA. And we've got our objects here as before. we want the title / name to be on the mini card. I also want the photo of the item and the person if they're available. So I'm going to have to think of a placeholder photo and image for each of those if the user doesn't upload one, which is fine. And then I'm probably going to maybe want to sort, I'm going to want to be able to sort people by birthday. I'm thinking maybe the birthday could be on the mini card. I'm also kind of thinking maybe the mini card, you don't want, I mean, the simpler the better. So I'm actually thinking, even though I'm theoretically allowed 1 to 3, I'm thinking of maybe moving this down to the card. And then we've got the same thing with price on item. And with gift, we've got occasion and we've got date and we've got name. And I was playing around with how those are actually how we're going to generate the name for the gift anyway. So it might just be that it's only the one attribute, or it might be all 3 of these. I haven't worked it out yet. Luckily, we have room to play with that. And as soon as we get onto the card, I'm thinking, so this is interesting. I've colored these tags as sort, filter, default sort to be metadata, because generally it is metadata that you are going to sort and filter by, but sometimes it is going to be, you're going to be sorting and filtering by something that is actually an attribute on a nested object. We call that pass-through metadata. And here I kind of am thinking that I want the default sort of my people and my items to be sorted by how soon their next gift is going to happen. And so that's going to actually be pass-through metadata, and that's fine. And here, even though this is a 0 to many relationship, which probably means I did say, I hope you didn't hear that traffic. I did say that you're going to want to not have your 0 to many relationship showing on cards unless your cards are massive. What I'm actually going to do here is show just the one next gift. And so it's essentially like it has one. And that's something that you can do. And then we've got interest tags. I didn't really want to show the interest tags on the card. I thought, oh, that's going to get really cluttered. But I want to be able to sort and filter by them, or in this case, filter by them. So I'm going to have to show them on the card. That makes sense. And of course, you're going to want to, thinking about it, because the whole point of tagging things is a way of browsing. It's not a way of looking at one. That's not that useful. So we're going to have to add the tags on. And I was thinking, and this is partly because I was running out of budget, I've moved a lot of these, like total number of gifts, days until next gift, and I've kind of smushed these together. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get away with it. I'm going to see when it plays out. But we could have like number of gifts, and maybe there's a version that's like upcoming only and a version that's all of it, and the way it's displayed on the card is quite condensed. Maybe I can get away with that. And then I've added a CTA menu. I've added a CTA menu for all of these, except this CTA menu for gift is actually not happening until phase 2. And here's the CTA menus down here. So some of these are actually going to be batchable. I'd like to be able to tag a bunch of people and a bunch of items with a particular tag. I'd love to be able to select several and be like, yeah, tag all these as things for board game lovers. And here I think maybe I want to be able to change the date on several gifts, because let's say you have a big family get together and it turns out you're going to do it on Sunday instead of Saturday. And so you want to be able to select a bunch and say change the date by a day. But again, this is phase 2. I haven't touched this yet. But it's nice to be able to think about it in a canonical way, because then it helps our roadmap. We know what might be coming up next. I've got my edit and delete. That could be on the card because there are those sort of swipey actions, but I put those on the detail page for now. And I've got these, these are all potential different nested lists, right? So we can scroll down and see more things with similar interest tags. And here we've got the 2 cards that are going to, so the card for the gift is going to show a mini card for the person and a mini card for the item, which is what we have in our NavFlow already. I do want to sort and filter by status. I was thinking update status could be actually, we could maybe, I could fit it in. I could just add it here because we don't have it for the CTA menu isn't till phase 2, but I want to try now to see if I can make it so the status is something that you can click on, and so it's also the CTA as well as the metadata. We'll see if that is wise or just cheeky of me. And here, so this isn't really canonical, you don't tend to put things to the side here, but I didn't know what else to do. I want people to be able to give a gift without them having to have come up with an item and add their item to the gallery. So maybe they just want to take a quick picture of the thing that's in front of them, just so they remember. And so if there isn't an item in the relationship, this is why this relationship is 0 to 1. If there isn't an item in this relationship, then maybe there's a photo and that's going to play the role instead. And I think this is pretty much everything I need to mention. All of this, even on the detail page, things are ranked by, I think, how much, by how prominent they should be. And that prominence is going to be canonical throughout, whether it's a mini card, a card, or a detail page. So at this point, we're now at a good point to start sketching and have a look at what our cards, lists, and details should look like. And I'm going to show you what I've done. I'm going to show you the sketches that I've done, because really this is the thing that this is meant to inform is sketching. And I've done something slightly higher fidelity in Adalo to show you exactly how much mileage you can get out of this approach. But if you look at what I've done in Adalo and you think, oh, wow, that's really, that's a lot. Just know that a lot of sketching happened beforehand, and I'm going to share some of those with you too. So what we'll be doing is first thinking about the shape of our lists, because if you want to do like a map, or you want to do a grid, or you want to do a list, that's gonna affect the shape of your cards and your mini cards. So you're gonna think about that first, and then you're gonna get to your cards and think you're gonna want a mini card of one object to fit in the card of another object. And so you're gonna start wanting to think about several objects at once at that point. It gets a little bit hairy, but that's why we sketch. That's why we don't move into high fidelity immediately. And then from that, we can work out our detail pages quite safely, because the cross interaction happens at the card level. That's the tricky bit. And luckily, that's the small and fun and cute bit. So it's a barrel of fun. So I'll see you there.